Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Castlevania Circle of the Moon. In the last part, we made our way to the top of the observation tower fighting Hugh in the process and gaining the last key, allowing us to go access the final boss of the game back in the sealed room, right where the game actively began. But before we go do that, there's a couple of other orders of business for us to take care of. For one thing, there's actively still technically 4 rooms left here in the observation tower for us to explore, one of which I actively briefly entered last part, and I mentioned it would be taking care of it after the boss fight. Admittedly, it's kind of dangerous to do because there's some pretty high damage that way, but that's what we're going to do next. For another thing, there's the battle arena in its totality, which we'll talk about later on in this very video. For right now, we actively have technically the most dangerous normal enemy in the game, the devil himself. This guy is big, and every single one of his attacks will do easily over 100 to 150 damage to you depending on your level and equipment setup. This tornado especially. But I still had enough hearts to actively take care of the item crash with the cross boomerang so I could just melt through his own health like that. With that said, I could recommend farming the devil for a couple things. For one thing, each devil you kill is 10,000 experience, one of the highest values that a normal enemy can give you in the game. For another thing, their common drop is the potion highs at a 2% base drop rate, which is actually a very high drop rate for one of those items. Meaning, hey, as long as you take a lot of damage along the way, you can recover it pretty easily. But their rare drop is the mirror armor at a 1.5% base drop rate. That will increase your defense by 300, which is an absurdly good upgrade at a decently high drop rate. With that said, before we tackle the battle arena, I'm going to be doing a couple of separate farms in this video to showcase important steps for the battle arena, and one of those ends up being one of my favorite armors in the game as it is anyway, so mirror armor's not exactly on my list of things to grab at this specific point. This specific hidden room here is actually a very good location to farm either the platinum armor or the double grips from the dark armors on top of the steel armors from the evil pillars in the case you're trying to get any of that. The only reason I recommended coming here after the boss fight is while you would have to fight through the devil at lower health bars or just try to avoid it, admittedly there are good combos for that with the DSS. This is actively the area we use to leave the area as the final warp room in the game is right here. So now we have access to every single warp room in the game. And like I believe I mentioned earlier in the LP, this really actively showcases one thing on the map. Every single warp room in the game is on the top half of the castle, and some of them are in good locations. The one over by the battle arena I think is a needed location, same with the one by the chapel tower, the one by the sealed room itself, as well as the one in the observation tower. But they really could have used one that's somewhere like near the very end of the underground warehouse so that you have a better shortcut over to the catacombs outright rather than just falling from the sealed room. Something down there would have gone a long way, I think. I ended up coming back to the eastern chunk of the audience chamber for a couple of reasons. For one thing, this is the warp point that's actively closest to a save point so I could heal after the Hugh battle. For another, the first item I actively want to farm is right in this general vicinity. Namely, we want to go to the little hidden room here in the outer wall we got, I believe, a heart max up in earlier in the LP. Now that we've defeated certain bosses, an enemy has actively spawned in that room that has an item I want to grab as their rare drop. If memory serves, the specific boss you need to beat for this enemy to spawn in is the dragon zombie, but you're not ready to fight it after that. This is another version of the fallen angel and all those enemies, the nightmare. Same general attack pattern, it circles projectiles around itself while flying about the room completely wildly. At a 2.5% base drop rate, its common drop is a mind restore, so just a basic ether pretty much. But its rare drop is what we're looking for, but it's at a 0.5% base drop, the needle armor. One of my favorite armors in the game, and on playthroughs I don't go through the battle arena, as rare as those are, my favorite armor in the game, period. This took me about 13 to 14 nightmares to farm up, which is way fewer than I was expecting to actively farm up here. The needle armor is actively the 3rd strongest armor in the game by pure defense, but the 2nd strongest that actively doesn't have any drawbacks. It boosts your defense by a whopping 400, while also boosting your strength by an admittedly small 10 points. But hey, that's a really good defense boost. It's 100 defense stronger even than the Devil's Mirror armor, which I find kind of funny, because the Nightmare is a much easier enemy to kill than the Devil would ever be, which is admittedly a sentence you can take in several other ways. Now that we have that, my next destination is actively to come over here and attempt to farm the Grizzlies and Arachnes. I'm looking for actively heart megas like that from the Arachnes if I can get them, but I'm also trying to get some spiced meats from the Grizzlies along the way if I can. If memory serves, I get absolutely none of them though. I'm doing this because since the battle arena is all that's left for us besides the final boss, I want as many heart or HP restoratives as I can get. In a few moments, I also go out of my way to farm the wind armors again over in the observation tower, as their high chances of dropping either base potions or potion highs is really worthwhile in my eyes. I'm also ultimately doing this to farm up some experience as well, as you really probably shouldn't tackle the battle arena until you're at least level 50 or so on average, I'd say. Very skilled players with very specific equipment setups can probably make do with late 40s, but if you're especially new to the game, level 53 to 55 is probably the better soft spot. The next enemy we're actively going to look for is back here at the underground warehouse, and this is an enemy that doesn't spawn in until after you defeat Camilla. In the hidden room just off to the side of the giant vertical shaft on the far western side of the underground warehouse lies the Lilith. This run's actively pretty tough to kill, only because it has such a wide room to deal with and does, frankly, kind of nuts damage. Using summons is actively recommended whenever you fight one of these. I'm not here to fight the Lilith for a drop, though. I'm here to fight the Lilith for its pure experience points. Every single one of these you kill gives you 20,000 experience, the second highest EXP yield of anything in the game, period, barring one specific enemy in the battle arena. It does have good drops, notably its common drop at a 1.5% base drop rate is a Mind EX, which is a full MP recovery, and its rare drop at a 0.5% base drop rate is the Sage Robe. That piece of armor boosts your defense by a decent 250, which is really good for endgame, while boosting your int by a whopping 500, making it your best fit if you like using high MP based skills, because that way you can just get that MP back all the more quickly. I should note though, the Lilith is a very distinct enemy from the Lilim enemy, who's actively back in the machine tower after you defeat death. That enemy I think is like near the second save point, I believe, in the machine tower. That's overall just an easier version of the same enemy, but its common drop is a Mind High at a base 2% drop rate. But its rare drop is the Dark Armor at a 0.5% base drop rate. That's an interesting armor. By pure defense, it is the strongest armor in the game, and a whopping 550 extra defense added to Nathan's totals. But it actively has drawbacks. Namely, it drops the other 3 stats you use by 10, which is not the biggest drop in the world, but it's still a drawback. The second best armor in the game, while it has less defense, doesn't have those drawbacks, so it's ultimately the armor I prefer to use. At this point, though, I'm back in the observation tower farming the wind armors to get some potions and potion highs, because it's the last step I want to do before I tackle the battle arena. You might think, is this all really worth it? Yes it is, because if you want to do 100%, you do need to do the battle arena, because it's actively counted as part of the map. Off the top of my head, I want to say the battle arena counts for roughly 6% of the map or so, give or take a couple of decimal points. And while this isn't the only Metroidvania Castlevania to have its battle arena of some sort count for map percentage, Order of Ecclesia as well as Portrait of Ruin do the same thing to mixed degrees, in my opinion. I ultimately prefer how games like Aria of Sorrow, I think technically Dawn of Sorrow, as well as Harmony of Dissonance handle a battle arena type thing, where it's more of a secondary mode that you play to get some unlocks rather than a part of the main map. I think I end this farm session at roughly level 53 or 54, which, as I said earlier, is the place you probably want to be on, especially on a first run. Level 50 is the lowest I would recommend you be, ultimately, though, unless you're super experienced, like I said earlier. The highest I think I've ever done the battle arena is like level 62 or something like that. Or at the very least, early 60s. I can't quite remember the exact level, somewhere about there. And even on that run, well, I definitely had an easier time with a lot of the early rooms of the battle arena. The later rooms could still very easily kill me. In fact, they did. The reason I got into my early 60s as it was because I was getting frustrated dying over and over and over again in the battle arena because I had just worse armors in general. I was probably missing a lot of good DSS combos in that playthrough because it was so early on, and I want to say I also didn't have any good real accessories outside of the stuff that just happened to drop along the way, which was notably worse stuff. Which, that's probably overall the thing I will always say I dislike the least about this game. Pretty much every notable equipment piece being tied to drop rates rather than having some decent ones along the way. Because every other game in the series does that, and they feel so much better for it. In any case, I am now ready to tackle the battle arena, though I am going to sit still for a moment here to let my MP drain and recover my health with this DSS combo, just so I'm at max. And it's time for us to talk about the battle arena in and of itself. Like I mentioned, this place is surprisingly large. It's roughly about 6% of the game's map in total, and they do give you every sub-weapon here in the game via these torches. But there are some specific rules to keep in mind with this place. To step beyond will be to test your ability in the battle arena. Your mind power will be drained. You will not be able to use DSS. Once you enter, you will not be able to leave until all are defeated, though you may be rewarded for your efforts. The battle arena is a marathon of set combat arenas, with many having break rooms between them to recoup some hearts from torches as you go. The enemy selection here pulls from a majority of the bestiary, but there's even some enemies entirely unique to this area. Guess what enemies drop our few remaining DSS cards? At higher than normal rates, admittedly, compared to some other attribute or action cards, but still low enough where you're not even guaranteed to get them as you go through here. I actively luck out in this playthrough specifically. The early rooms aren't too bad, but the limitation that text spoke of a moment ago is felt most at the ending rooms. Our MP is being continually drained here, and due to that, you effectively have no access to the DSS. There is a workaround to this though, namely that your MP doesn't get zeroed out immediately upon being in here. Instead, your MP gets drained from whatever your current value was upon entering to 0 numerically, and it doesn't get drained while you're in a menu. So if you use, say, some Mind Restores, Mind Highs, or Mind EXs if you have any, you can activate the DSS quickly and get something strong in before your MP gets put to 0 again. Admittedly, it is a very short window, but you can do it. Thus, in some more annoying rooms, you could, say, pause the game, chug some Mind Restores, change over to the Uranus Cockatrice combo, for instance, unpause, then immediately activate and use the summon to clear out a troublesome room, assuming you get the input timing correct, because it is really tight. I myself like to use this strategy even as there's 2 or 3 rooms out of the 17 we have to go through here with combat encounters in them that are frankly just kind of ridiculous with their enemy layouts. A lot of the other ones you can actually take your time in pretty well as long as you let the enemies come to you and progress pretty smoothly, but those 2 or 3 rooms, oh boy are they frankly kind of awful. The summon combos with Uranus are overall your best bet in that regard, but not for nothing, the Pluto-based combo that allows you to use the item crashes can also come in handy. It's just a lot less far-reaching, so the summons are overall the better option in my eyes. If you're ever getting overwhelmed or are about to actively lose, you can leave at various points across the area, namely whenever you're on the far right wall or near the far left wall. They do give you little passageways like the one we're about to see right here you can slide out of. If you take those routes, you do need to restart the arena in totality, which is kind of rough, but better to save the experience or items you've gained along the way and farm up some other consumables afterwards rather than just die and get forced into the same situation over and over and over again, like I did in my early playthroughs. This room's ridiculous, by the way. Nothing like 7 or 8 total Minotaurs slowly shambling towards you doing their giant shockwave attack. This room in specific is the one I tend to use the Thunderbird summon on, because frankly, it just makes it an easier time for me. Just for the sake of clarity, if you actively do take the evacuation slide passages at any point in this battle arena, the ones on the left wall will deposit you over near the very northeastern room of the audience chamber, where there was, I believe, an MP up and heart max up for us earlier in the game. And if you take the ones on the eastern wall, you'll actively be deposited in the large room, just below where we fought Ajmalek in the Chapel Tower. Effectively, the room that actively allowed us to reach where the battle arena was to begin with. One of the weirder notes about the battle arena, though, is that it actively doesn't have any background music at all. I do not know why to this day. I know Future Me is definitely playing some other song over this just to make it a little more interesting. But yeah, you can hear it in the early areas. There's just no song here. It just plays the sound effects, and it really feels alien. Maybe it was a case of they wanted to use one of the boss themes here, but they felt all too short and repetitive for the length that the area can go on for. I don't know. It's definitely a little weird. Like I said earlier, there are other Metroidvania Castlevanias that have areas like this in their level design, namely Portrait of Ruin and Order of Ecclesia. Come to mind, maybe Belmont's Curse will as well. We'll see when that comes out. If there's one thing I like that those two do more, it's that A, it's entirely locked to boss fights or very powerful enemies, and B, they either encourage or at least allow you to use the game's main mechanical focus in a way that makes it feel more satisfying to go through. Them basically banning the DSS here feels weird. And I'm assuming the reason they did that ultimately was so you couldn't, say, use the DSS combos that make you completely invincible in one way or another, or, again, spam stuff like the summons just to make rooms a complete cakewalk. The third to last and second to last rooms, though, are where the DSS cards we're looking for are. Namely, the first one is from the Devil Armor here, an upgraded version of the Dark Armor from the Observation Tower. Their common drop is a Potion High at a 2.5% base drop rate, and their rare drop is the Black Dog card we just got, also at a 2.5% base drop rate, so good luck. If the DSS cards don't drop on your first trek through here, you gotta go through again. And it sucks when it happens like that. As for the Black Dog card, it's the Dark Elemental Attribute card. We don't have much time, so just to highlight some of the combos, the Mercury combo slows down your whip but leaves lingering dark clouds on enemies that do extra damage. The Venus combo doubles your outgoing damage while having your defenses. The Mars combo has Nathan pull out a piece and give enemies a taste of lead, and the Pluto combo is odd. It changes Nathan into a skeleton that has minimal defenses. Any shot can pretty much one-shot you. But your physical attacks will throw bones. The bones will either do basically 1 damage or maximum damage. It's completely luck-based. Not a good combo, but it has an extra effect if you wear the bear ring that the skeleton medalist enemy has as its rare drop. Nathan, in that combo when wearing that, will instead turn into the character Bear Tank from Rakuga Kids, a game most of this game staff also worked on. This form still has minimum defense, but has a missile as a standard attack, which you can aim higher by holding up when attacking. It also has a bomb you can lay down while holding down and attacking. Odd, but funny. The final fight here in the battle arena is an upgraded version of the devil enemy. This is actively the enemy that has the highest experience yield in the game at a whopping 30,000, but the process to get to it is not worth it in my eyes. If you're going to farm experience, it is just more worthwhile to actively farm the Lilith back at the underground warehouse than this devil in any form. Though I will say, the reward for finishing the battle arena actively makes the process of redoing it a little bit easier. Namely, now that the devil is defeated, what lies beyond us is the only piece of equipment just found in the level design of the game, the shinning armor.
You mean shining?
Shh! You wanna get sued?
Yes, sir, Groundskeeper Willie. So this is the strongest armor in the game overall. It boosts Nathan's defense by 550 while also boosting his other 3 basic stats by 10. Technically, the dark armor from the Lilum over in the Machine Tower is the stronger armor when it comes to pure defense, but I'd rather not have the drawbacks. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 12, we're going to go finish off the game, talking about the DSS card I didn't talk about in this actual commentary, the unicorn we got earlier in the process. See you guys then.